Thank you, Whitaker. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbus, an inclusive spiritual community of people who support each other in their personal search for truth and meaning. I'm Rick Spradlin, your service leader. This morning, I'll also be your speaker today, and later I'll be presenting Getting to Know the Stranger Within. We'll also be hearing a reading from one of our members, Danielle Neal in Pennsylvania, plus more music from Whitaker Locke. We have some announcements now this morning, beginning with a reminder that this is a hybrid service today. Some of us are here in person, while some of us are joining us on Zoom. Okay, we also have a few more announcements. We are continuing to collect for the Homeless Resource Network, Paz Amigos, and Feeding the Valley. We have collection boxes in front of the fellowship, and please remember it is springtime, so we don't need the heavy coats anymore. Next week, I'll have the program again with a topic that I hope will hit me on the way home, hopefully. I don't forget what it is. May 9th, our program will be presented by Danielle Neal. Her topic will be Mother's Day. May 16th, Joni Andres will share with us a program on mindfulness. That will be a Zoom-only service. There'll be no in-person on May 16th. May 23rd, John Comiskey will be our speaker, and he'll be talking about the Mountain, the UU Retreat and Learning Center. The Mountain will be our recipient for our Give Away the Plate donation that we make in May. May 30th, John Nix will present thoughts on Memorial Day.
Just one announcement is that the board decided that on 6 June, we will open the building, and that's with an asterisk on it in case their conditions suddenly deteriorate. But we're planning as 6 June being a service within the hall, and all safety precautions will be taken. So, and we're expecting everybody to be vaccinated who comes in. We're going to ask that, and people will wear a mask, and we will be distanced appropriately. So, taking all precautions. So, thanks.
I was just wondering if you're going to mention, or if you mentioned I didn't hear it, about Wednesday night.
Oh, I can. We're not this coming Wednesday, but following Wednesday, we're planning on having a meeting here in the fellowship hall and have a Zoom. Ron and I checked this out. It worked. Elise was wonderful. She helped us coordinate this, and so we put the Zoom screen on the big screen, and then we'll have people meeting in person. And yes, Dick, thank you very much. So I think that'll work. Like I said, Ron and I checked it out. It should.
Now, let us once again affirm the 7 principles which sum up the core values that Unitarian Universalist congregations support and promote. Please read aloud with me. Number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Number 2, justice, equity, and compassion. Number 3, the acceptance of one another and the encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Number 4, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Number 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process in our congregations and in society at large. Number 6, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And number 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Okay. With the wind blowing this morning, it blew a page over. I realize now that we haven't lit the chalice yet. So we begin our services, sometimes retroly, by lighting the chalice. The chalice speaks to us of reason, tolerance, and freedom, and also compassion, justice, and love. May its flame ever warm and illuminate our lives. And now for our celebration of life toast. Unique to this fellowship, our toast carries no doctrinal symbolism. It's not a sacrament. It's simply a warm tradition, and we invite you to share it with us. Please lift your cups virtually or real, and please join together in the last line. We celebrate life. We celebrate life with its beauty and its pain. We lift these cups in tribute to the achievements of human minds and hands, and in sensitivity to the frustrations of misfortune and heartache. Not fixing blame or credit for the outcome of chance, sensing the risk, savoring the joy, sharing it all. Knowing of the certainty of death and remembering the value of each moment, we drink our toast of celebration to this time, to the future, to each other, to the throbbing of the earth and sea and sky with life. Together, we drink this toast in celebration of life. The morning's offering will now be given and received in the spirit of grateful fellowship. If you're watching us on Zoom, you can mail offerings to UUFC at Box 698, Fortston, Georgia, 31808. Or you can use PayPal. Now, if you're using PayPal, you'll hit Send Money and put as the recipient our email address, uufcga@gmail.com. While we're Thank you, Whitaker. I needed that. And now a reading from one of our members, Danielle Neal, coming to us from Pennsylvania.
Thank you for letting me share a reading with you. I have chosen one called Let Us Pause Now to Look Inward by Michael Schuler. Let us pause now to look inward, exploring, if we dare, the secret places where motives are made and intentions live. Beneath appearances, what kind of person are we? Is the inner self congruent with the one that rejoices with friends, assists the infirm, comforts the crying child? No. As we take inventory and remember mistakes we have made, impure thoughts we have had, schemes we have hatched, we know that all is not right within. We are born to inconsistency, not purity, and conscience is a dubious guide that leads us stumbling along the path of virtue. We are all fallen, all self-condemned. For time after time we have succumbed to temptation and chosen a lesser good, betraying the truth of ourselves, the truth etched indelibly on our essential being. This, then, is our estate and our inescapable humanness. Let us recognize, not deny, our imperfections, forgive and not condemn ourselves. May growing awareness of our mixed motives and morals increase our humility and make possible lives of greater sensitivity, sincerity, and serenity. Amen. I hope you go about the world today finding your inner peace and just being happy with who you are. Have a great day.
Thank you, Danielle. And that was perfect. Before we begin, if I know it's rather hot, a lot of sun that day. If anyone needs, we have 3 umbrellas up front here and 2 in the back. If you need to use them as a parasol, feel free. And there's another chair in the shade back there. I see if anyone needs to move. And now, getting to know the stranger within. All of my life, there's been a stranger following me, always watching, ever present. Who I am is made up of an imperfect outer self that others see, and a quiet stranger inside that I have spent years trying to get to know. Inside my head with that stranger, there are 2 voices. One voice that believes in me, encourages me, and a second voice that reminds me of every shortcoming and failure of my life. One voice that says I can, and one voice that says sit down and shut up. Socrates told his students, know thyself. Yeah, well, that's easier said than done. And there's one thing we know about humans is that we never really know anything. We never truly know our parents. We never really know our siblings. We never know our own children as well as we think we do. We want to know those that we love, and we want them to know us, but at the same time, there are parts of ourselves that we are afraid of other people knowing. We're afraid that if our true self were known by all of our weaknesses, our fears, our raw nerves, if they were exposed, people might not accept us. There's an odd expression in our vernacular. You often hear it from family or friends when they look at you and they say, I know you better than you know yourself. Well, nothing could be more absurd. Because until you know yourself, your true self, it's not really possible to know other people. The only glimpses of understanding that we have of someone else is when we see something in them that we recognize in ourselves. How can we know ourselves when every part of who we are is hidden or obscured in some way? Consider this. A man looks in a mirror because he wants to see what others see. Right off the bat, what he sees is a reversal of what others see. It's a lateral or left-right reversal. When I was growing up, I knew a pair of twins, identical twins, and they parted their hair. One would part his hair on the left, the other would part his hair on the right, just to make that mirror image more complete. The problem with using mirrors or photographs to see what we look like to others is that our appearances are constantly changing. The face, very flexible. The expressions, constantly moving. That's why it takes so many takes to get a picture that you actually like. Or you may not ever like. I never like my pictures. And the expression of our faces, it's not always what we're trying to convey. It doesn't always match the expression that we feel inside. I can't tell you how many times people say, Rick, what's wrong? You look worried. Really? I thought this was my happy face. It's like when you hear your voice played back on a recorder. When we talk, we hear our voices, our own voice, in two distinctly different ways. We hear the sound coming in through the eardrum, outside and in through the eardrum, like everyone else does. But we also hear that sound as it vibrates through your bony skull. This vibration causes us to have a false sense of bass. We think our voice is a little bit lower than what everyone else is actually hearing. So what we think we sound like isn't the way we sound to others. What we think we look like isn't really quite what other people see. How can you know someone that you never really see or hear properly? But the hardest part about getting to know your true self, the snag that really makes it nearly impossible, is that just like the man looking in the mirror to see what others see, and then decides he wants a hairstyle based on what he sees, and he changes his hairstyle. Looking at this, seeing little glimpses of ourselves causes us to immediately change. Our efforts to discover our true selves is hampered by our desire to fit in with others. Adolescent boys, their voices will naturally drop when puberty sets in. But most boys will then attempt to speak in an even lower pitch to appear more grown up. So, middle-aged men will attempt comb-overs to hide their growing bald spots. One of the advantages of being tall is it really only shows when I sit down. My mother wore a wig for years until they went out of style, a decision made by other people. Then she began dyeing her hair at home because her feeling of self-worth depended greatly on the opinions of others. We do these things not in faith to our true selves, but in keeping with how we think we are perceived by others. We call it self-worth, but it has little to do with self-perception because we don't perceive ourselves in isolation, but instead imagine how we fit in with our group. But of course, these are only outward expressions, not our true self from within, our character. To discover our inner strength, our inner person, we have to be tested, challenged, made to feel uncomfortable. It's often said that hard times will change a person, turn them into someone stronger. But the fact is, challenges don't change who you are. They scrape away painfully what you are not. And what is left is a small glimpse of who you were all along. So, how do we get to know our true selves? How do we avoid simply living a construct of what others want us to be? Well, I found a website called Psych Alive and offers some following advice. They say, number one, make sense of your past. Build a coherent narrative of your past. In order to uncover who you are and why we act the way we do, we have to know our own story. Being brave and willing to explore our past is an important stepping stone on the road to understanding ourselves and becoming who we want to be. Research has shown that it isn't just the things that happen to us that define who we become, but how much we've made sense out of what has happened to us so far. Unresolved traumas from our history inform the ways that we act today. Studies have even shown that life story coherence has a statistically significant relationship to our psychological well-being. Number two, differentiate. Now, differentiation in this term means developing a sense of ourselves as independent individuals. We have to separate our destructive interpersonal societal influences that don't serve us. In order to live a free life, a person must, develop our own ideas and values and beliefs rather than automatically accepting those that we have grown up with. Number three, seek meaning. Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl famously said, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only a lack of meaning and purpose." In order to find ourselves, we must seek out our own personal sense of purpose. This means separating our own point of view from other people's expectations of us. It means asking ourselves what our values are, what truly matters to us, then following the principles that we believe in. Studies show that the happiest people seek out more meaning rather than just seeking pleasure. And that people are generally happier when they have goals that extend beyond just doing for themselves. Number four, think about what you want. There's a tendency in life to focus on the negative. Many of us fall too easily into victimized thoughts and complaints about our own circumstances and surroundings, rather than orienting ourselves towards positive goals and strategies. Simply put, we think a lot about what we don't want instead of concentrating on what we do want. Now, this may sound simple, but most of us are to varying degrees defended against our feelings of wanting. We may feel guarded because we don't want to get hurt. Wanting makes us feel alive, and therefore it makes us vulnerable. The experience of joy and fulfillment can be met with feelings of anxiety and, on a deeper level, profound sadness. In order to honestly discover what we want in life, we must silence our inner critic and drop our defenses. As an exercise, when we're having a lot of negative thoughts like, I don't want this, I don't want that, we can try to shift our thinking to what we really do desire. If we're fighting with our partner and thinking, you never hear what I say, you don't really care about me, we can instead think about or even communicate on a level that expresses what we want our end goal to be. I want to be listened to, seen, and loved. Changing our outlook in this way makes us feel more in touch with who we are. It strips us down to our more basic desires without the unnecessary layers of defense that divert us from the core values of our truest self. Number five, recognize your personal power. When we know what we want, we are challenged to take power over our lives. No longer are we engaged in a spiral of negative thinking that tells us all the things that are wrong with the world around us or all the reasons that we can't have what we want. Instead, we are accepting ourselves as a powerful player in our own destiny. Harnessing our personal power is essential to both finding and becoming ourselves. Knowing our personal power means recognizing that we have a heavy effect on our lives. We create the world we live in. We create a better world. To create a better world means shifting our outlook, feeling empowered, and rejecting a victimized point of view. Number six, silence that inner critic, that voice in my head that reminds me of everything I've ever done wrong or haven't done. To be an adult, we must also break the ways that we self-parent, either by criticizing or soothing ourselves. We have to stop listening to that critical inner voice. This destructive thought process can be made up of a judgmental attitude that tells us that we aren't good enough to succeed, or don't desire what we want, or what seems like something that we really shouldn't be wanting. By recognizing and standing up to this inner enemy, we learn not to act like our own parents or act childish in our lives, but to find our real selves and know our strength and ability. Number 7, practice compassion and generosity. Mahatma Gandhi once said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. In addition to improving our mental and physical health and lengthening our lifespan, generosity can enhance our sense of purpose, giving our lives more value and meaning. If you want to find our way in life, it's beneficial to practice generosity as a mental health principle and take on a compassionate attitude towards ourselves and others. People are generally happier when they create goals that go beyond themselves. And finally, number 8, know the value of friendship. See, we don't choose the family that we're born into, but often we assume that this family defines who we are. As children, we don't have much power. We don't have much say in where we spend our times. But as adults, we create a family of choice. We can choose who and what we want to emulate. We can seek out people who make us happy, who support what lights us up, and who inspire us to feel passionate about our lives. This family may also include people that you were born into, your actual family, but it's a family that we've really chosen, a core group of people who we consider true allies and friends. Creating this family is a key component to finding ourselves, because who we choose to surround ourselves with has a profound effect on how we relate to the world. Having a support system that believes in us helps us in realizing our goals and developing on a personal level. So that quiet person who lives in the shadow of our mind won't reveal himself or herself willingly. But with gentle coaxing, you can discover who you really have been all along. Thank you for listening. And now, before we extinguish the chalice, please remember to stay safe, look out for one another, and treat the stranger as you would yourself. After our closing words, Whitaker will close us out with hymn 193, Our Faith is But a Single Gem. Now, if you'll please stand with me, if in body or spirit, as you're able, for our closing words. With unity of spirit, we go our ways in universal fellowship until we meet again. Thank you. Please be seated.